All right, hello and welcome everyone. Doug here with the LincolnList.com. Welcome back to another weekly edition of Stock Market Mutterings for the week of January 13th. Hope you guys' trading is going well. If you need some help with that, as always, take a moment, visit the LincolnList.com, click on the Trade Room tab. You can start trading with us right away. Now, before I get started with this week's Mutterings, let me say I have a special announcement for everyone. Some of you already know this. I have a brand new DVD out. It's called Rock Solid, the Guide to Becoming a Complete Trader. Best of all, this DVD is free. I cover trade setups, how to find the stocks to trade, building the right kind of trader foundation, and a bunch of other things. I'm going to post a link up here on the screen. If you want to watch it, just click on it, start watching it. Again, it's completely free. It's my gift to the trading community. Just a special thank you to each and every one of you. So if you're interested, check it out. So let's go ahead and talk about this market, talk about a couple of setups. To be honest with you, outside of one day, which I think was the second trading day of this year, since that Christmas Eve, which now Christmas Eve is the low, this market has been extremely bullish. I mean, every dip has been getting bought up on most of this stock. And like we've been saying, if you go back to some of the happy hours, we go back to some of these market mutterings, the biggest, most aggressive, violent rallies happen inside of bear markets. Now, we got a couple of areas that we're starting to trade into that we really need to pay attention to, as the week progresses. Now, where we left off last week was wanting to know if we were going to make it above this little shorter term spot of resistance around the 251s. We'll blew through 251 like it wasn't there. So where we stand right now here, just looking at the market, if you're looking at the Qs, if you're looking at the Dow, if you're looking at the SPY, whatever it is, you're getting really close to the 50 moving average on the daily chart. So I think you're entering a spot right here where not only do you need probably a moment for this market to digest this move and process the move, but you're also starting to see earnings coming through on some of these bigger beta, bigger leader stocks throughout this week, which we'll talk about that in just a second as well. So this is kind of where we left off weeks ago by saying 260 on the SPY was a big level. When it broke that, you saw this aggressive flush right into Christmas Eve. And since then, you've got this little classic V-shape, I'm just going to try to draw. You got this little V-shape rally going on. I think you're going to start to see this. Number one, it's approaching the 260s. I think when you get around 260 in that area, you're going to see a little bit of a slowdown and maybe a little bit of back testing off of that level. Only time will tell, but I would imagine it's going to be very difficult for the market to continue this type of pace throughout the rest of this week. So pay attention to that. Now, if you start to break down somewhere around the 10 moving average, or you start losing support, which is about 253, let's say 253, then maybe you're going to get down here negative for the year or get down into this last little pivot of 244. But first things first, you're entering a very close area of resistance right here. 260 was the breakdown point when that whole sell-off started. It's now retraced just about all of that. So we'll go ahead and see what this week progresses, how it progresses, But I think you're going to see a little bit of back testing, and the value is probably going to be to the short side. Now, speaking of that, one here that has to be watched is this Netflix. I mean, this thing, I don't know if this is an earnings leak or there's something behind the scenes here that we're just not picking up on, but this thing is, I mean, it's just been going down for months and months on end, and this thing's not only retraced everything that it lost in December and November, but you're trading practically back to October areas. I mean, this thing's just been out of all the betas. When you look at Netflix, Amazon, Google, Apple, Facebook, they've all made nice bounces, but this thing has been tremendous. I mean, it was sitting down here at Christmas Eve at 230. Yeah, 230, and it's all the way up here at the 200 moving average, 257. I mean, it's over like $100, 357. Excuse me, 337. I'm sorry, 337. So anyway, you can see the chart. I mean, that's pretty violent. I would be all over this short right now as a swing, either using options or something if the earnings weren't here. Again, I keep kind of going back to thinking. I try not to overthink myself a lot when I trade. But one of the things you have to look at is, like, I feel like there's something behind the scenes here, like an earnings leak or something. I mean, this is just by far one of the bigger moves that you've seen in Beta Town. So keep an eye on this. I mean, prior to that, I think that's Thursday. The announcement is you might get a little bit of back testing, might be some opportunities, but I'll definitely be watching that one here as we move forward. Another one here I'd kind of like to take a look at is OLED. Now, OLED has been incredibly weak, you know, even before the rallies sold off, or before the market corrected, this thing has been pretty weak. Again, one of my things I want to look at here is I'm kind of leaning a little bit more to the short side, or having a little bit more short bias, just based on the market, where it sits into resistance areas right now. Most of these stocks are trading, and then kind of looking for just a little bit of that to come back a little bit of profit taking, just a little bit of digestion on that move, and some of these names to come back. And I like to look for some of the weaker ones that's just been a benefactor of where the market sits. So OLED right here is one I want to take a look at, especially if you start trading upwards of this 99.50 to 100. This is a pretty good spot right here as well for a short. Now, another one is Tesla. As I always say, there's a trade everywhere to be made someplace on Tesla. Now, this thing has actually built somewhat of a constructive pattern over the last week. So you're now over this area which it struggled with most of December, the 340 spot, and you're kind of just hanging out up here. I mean, you're free and clear to start working on some of these upper areas. But again, this is Tesla. It's so headline sensitive with many things. One moment you could be looking at that breakout. Next moment you could be looking at it to the downside. You just really have to trade the ranges on this thing and pay close attention to the setups on it. But I kind of like this one here too. And of course, NVDA. Now this one's also pretty constructive here. Like when you look at some of these, when I say constructive, for those that are learning technical analysis and you're trying to extract value from the market, when you look at something like Netflix, you get those really sharp V-shaped rallies. Those are hard to sustain in the short term. If you're trying to be a trader and you're trying to make money in the short term, that's a very difficult pattern to sustain, and it's a confusing pattern, and it's sharp in both directions, which means you can easily be stopped out or messed up on your trade. When you're talking about constructive, you're talking about something that's been tested a few times as it's making its rally. It has pulled back, but the dips have been bought, and then it makes another high. Those are much more sustainable over the shorter period of time. So you do have something like that working here on NVIDIA. Again, I don't think any of these things are going to return to their former glory before the sell-off started, but you do have some space to 161. I think if you start to see aggressive movements there, maybe it could be short off of some of the parabolics, some of the dips could be bought. There's some good trading ranges in this NVIDIA. There's some great trading ranges in that Tesla. There's probably some good trading ranges here in Apple as well. So we kind of want to look at those as we move forward, mainly to the short side on any kind of opening strength early on Monday. And then we want to kind of look at that Netflix being the first big beta name to report, how that's going to set the tone for some of the rest of these, for the Qs and for some of the other areas. So keep those on watch. Also really like this Win. This has been one of my favorite stocks to trade. A pretty sharp rally here up in towards resistance. I don't see this thing making it too much further past 116, but again, you've got earnings coming up on a lot of these, so it's going to be touch and go on which ones you have. You don't want to hold. I don't want to hold through earnings. You can do whatever you want, but I don't prefer to do that. So here's the game plan going forward with this vicious rally. Just kind of like, one of the things when you're looking at the market being sold on Christmas Eve, at that point was an emotionally low point for lots of traders, for the sentiment across the board. Everybody couldn't imagine another green day in the market. Here you are a couple weeks later with one of the biggest rallies in the last decade. So you had the biggest sell-off in the last decade, followed by the biggest rally in the last decade. So if you're a buyer into the biggest sell-off, you should be a short seller into the biggest rally, right? So that's kind of what I'm going to be looking for, but I don't want to just run into it. I want to kind of wait for some of these ranges to set up, wait for some of these charts to set up. But there's a lot of good things out there, especially Netflix, and we really want to pay attention to that one going into earnings. So anyway, if you guys need help, feel free to reach out to me. You know where I'm at. Again, take advantage of that DVD. It's completely free. I put together something very nice for everyone to help them build the right type of trading foundation. Until next week, thanks for watching Stock Market Mutterings. Take care and trade well.